So good afternoon, my name is Yasmin. I'm Vice President of the AIDS Treatment Activist Coalition based in New York, and I have a few moments with Dr. Mark Dybul, who is the US Global AIDS Coordinator in charge of PEPFAR, which as we all know is the President's Emergency Plan for AIDS Relief. Dr. Mark Dybul, thank you so much for making the time to be with us today. So to start with, we have 5 years experience of PEPFAR, and last week President Bush signed the authorization again, so that's wonderful. Could you give us an idea as to some of the lessons learned from the past 5 years and some of your goals for the next 5 years?
I think the biggest lesson is, and this President Bush is calling the new era in development, is a new approach to development, which believes in faith and trust in people on the ground to do the work. That where we need to get resources and where we need the activities on the ground in the country, not in the international arena, but on the ground in the country. And so we've been pushing our resources as hard as we can down to the local area. 87% of our partners are local. And I think the fundamental message is the old approach to development, which was relatively paternalistic of we're the donors and you're the recipients, is wrong. That what we're doing is supporting extraordinary human beings on the ground who with a little bit of resources will change the world. And I think that's probably the most important thing we've learned in the last 5 years.
What might you do differently?
Oh, I think, there's nothing we're doing we can't improve. What would ever worries me if someone's comfortable with what's being done right now. There's been great success. President Bush even said when he signed the law, some people call this a success. I call it a good start. We got a long way to go. And so we need to improve in every area. I think the area we are furthest behind as a global community is prevention. We've been talking about combination prevention for 3 years. We're delighted others have picked up on it.
Right.
We've been talking about the need to integrate prevention care and treatment for 3 years. We're glad others are picking up on it. But I think we also need a new approach. We're doing prevention the way we've done it for 20 years. Now the messages and the content may not need to change, but the approach to really grab young people, stay hold of them, and recognize that prevention's a chronic disease management approach just like care and treatment. You got to start with 5, 6, 7-year-olds and stay with them till they're beyond risk, which means changing messages all the time and keeping it alive and keeping it real for them at their different stages in life and a continuum, just like you do with treatment. So we're pretty far behind in prevention. I think the biggest gap we have right now is vision, actually. We can run through the laundry list of health systems and health workers and pediatrics and all the things that are very real and very big challenges, but I don't think there's much vision for where we need to be in 10 years and how we need to link HIV to all of development, not by getting rid of HIV-specific programs, but by breaking down bureaucratic walls. So we have an awful lot to do, and the greatest danger is being complacent, thinking that we've accomplished enough and we don't have to constantly modify and learn and change, and that's where I worry. But
I'm really glad, Dr. Dybul, that you mentioned prevention, because people primarily think of PEPFAR as a treatment support program. There's a lot of interest and a lot of reporting here on biomedical prevention. We've had some bad news, but there's also a lot of promise with pre-exposure prophylaxis, for example. Would PEPFAR be interested if those results were good and showed that it could have an impact on epidemiology in the developing world?
Oh, absolutely. To go back to what I just mentioned a moment ago, we were the first international initiative to say you need to combine prevention, care, and treatment. So when people say all you're doing is treatment, it drives me a little crazy, but I hear it all the time. And about 30% of our resources go for prevention if you include counseling and testing. We are already by far the largest funder of male circumcision, trying to push that out because it's biomedically proven. If pre-exposure prophylaxis is proven to be effective, absolutely. We will apply whatever evidence-based approach will turn this epidemic around. But for the long term, we're going to have a lot of behavior change too, because we don't have 100%. We don't have any silver bullets. Male circumcision isn't a silver bullet. Pre-exposure prophylaxis isn't going to be a silver bullet. We're always going to have to do combination prevention. And wherever you start with this versus that, or should we do more of that, that's a mistake in HIV. You have to do everything.
Well, as good as your contribution has been to make a profound impact, you're going to have to partner up with other people. And so could you say a word about your partnership compact?
Well, the partnership compact really grows out of what we've been doing, and that really is pushing past this era of donors and recipients where it's the West and North telling, and which is a terrible model and one we've really tried to push away from and focused on partnership, and President Bush is focused on that. So this is just the newest edition of that, to say going forward, everything we do will be done under the rubric of a partnership compact. All new resources will be based in a partnership compact. And partnership has obligations and responsibilities for each partner. And so we'll sit down with the countries, and by countries we need multi-sectoral. All parts of society need to be involved. Governments lead in policy and other areas, but all aspects of society have to be involved in creating those policies and implementing. Sitting down together and saying, where do we need to go? And what are our responsibilities in terms of resources and commitment and technical support, and what are the responsibilities in the country for resources, but also policies that allow the money to be used well. Pushing forward on gender equality. We're not going to tackle this epidemic if we don't have gender equal situations. Task shifting, effective use of medical and healthcare personnel. Rapid test, use of rapid tests, use of opt-out testing and PMT-CT. Now we don't expect countries to be all the way there, that's why we all work together, but what do we need, where do we need to be in 5 years, and what are our joint responsibilities and mutual obligations to get there? And that's what a partnership compact is all about. So we're really trying to drive to the country level how we do development instead of international meetings. As I said yesterday, we've got all the global architecture documents we need. Now we need to actually do it, which means get to the country.
Okay, as someone who spends a lot of her time on access in the developing world, one of the most exciting and innovative tools for us has been the accelerated fast-track approval by the FDA. And it was something that you promised and actually implemented. And it has had an enormous impact. And I wonder whether you could say a little bit about the progress that you've made there, how many products have been approved, and where you see that initiative going.
We think, we took a lot of heat for it at the beginning, that we were trying to avoid generics, which was never the reason. We just wanted to have high quality products. And so far, 70 products have been approved. As a result of this process, there are 35 products on the WHO list because they automatically put them on. It's moving very quickly. It was the first system to approve 3-in-1 pediatric combination. Our new law actually basically enshrines a process to ensure quality products going forward. And so we think it's important that we have rapid review, effective review, and that we provide high quality products. So I think it's been a huge success, and I think most people now believe it's been a huge success in pushing forward for access. We still have a ways to go. Most of the innovator companies have actually been doing fantastic work on voluntary licenses, and I think that's very exciting.
Not all of them, some of them.
Not all of them. Not all of them. Many of them. But it's been a very exciting development. I think what we need for the next 10 years is a much more informed, intelligent, almost dispassionate conversation of how do you protect intellectual property to innovate so that you create new products, because we're going to need newer and newer products while at the same time ensuring low-cost products. And I think the debate's been too polarized right now. And we need lawyers, ethicists, public health people, advocates, everyone sitting around. I actually think there's a framework which would allow us to balance those things appropriately. But we haven't had that conversation at the right level, I don't think, yet. So I think going forward, we need a much more reinvigorated thought process to, this is a generational approach. We don't have a vaccine, we don't have a cure, and probably won't, at least unless something happens that we don't know about. So how are we going to, in 10 to 15 years, ensure that we have the products that we need to continue to treat people while still having them at the lowest cost possible so that we can treat as many now? And we still have a ways to go on that.
Okay, thank you for that. And I have to ask you, what do you think might be the implications of a new administration, both on the vision of PEPFAR, but on the, in terms of PEPFAR on the ground?
Yeah. I don't think much, and one of the extraordinary things about PEPFAR, and I think it's because it really represents who the American people are, belief in dignity and worth of every human life, a belief in people, ordinary, otherwise ordinary people who will do extraordinary things. Americans deeply believe in that, and deeply generous and compassionate as long as you get something for it. And I think those values are reflected in PEPFAR, and that's why such an overwhelming majority of our Congress, both in the House and the Senate, voted for PEPFAR from all ideological perspectives. 80 to 16 in the Senate, 300 to 100 in the House. And even those who voted against it said, look, I'm just worried about the price tag. This is a great program. So it's got strong bipartisan support. Both of the presidential candidates voted for and co-sponsored the legislation. They were co-sponsors of the bill as it was moving forward.
Okay.
I think the only issue is President Bush, Mrs. Bush, Secretary Rice, before her Secretary Powell, were so personally engaged.
Right.
It comes deeply from the president's commitment and belief in Africa and belief in people. and belief that to whom much is given, much is required, which I think will be shared, but it's difficult to describe how important his personal engagement has been in moving the process forward. So we're just hopeful that the next president, even though I have no doubt will think this is a good program and want to support it, and Congress will, remain personally engaged.
Well, thank you very much for taking the time.
Thanks. Nice to be with you.